morning. How are you this morning? Thank you for your attendance yesterday, and hopefully we will have a good show this morning. Lots of lively discussions, I'm sure. Today, we're going to do two more less structured sessions. We're going to have a few remarks to open it up with Andy and then myself with some discussion, and then also after that turn it over to three discussants to close out the session. So with that, Andy.
So the way I'm thinking about this is that I will just give a couple general implications that are on our minds, people who did the work, but just to kind of prime the pump. So we've got a terrific audience here, including my fellow center collaborators, all of whom should be thinking about, especially after yesterday, what implications there might be. We have two sessions on implications, so this is just kicking off general discussion as initiated by us, and then the next one we have an outstanding group of panelists who will be talking about implications as well. This is about implications for funding and policy, and the other one is about implications for research. But my bet is that the boundaries between those two won't be very clear, and that's just fine, so no problems. To me, the biggest implication has to do with our cognitive science intervention, and it probably shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, since that's what the whole center was about. We put the content arm in there as a contrast, as well as the control. But so this just says that to us, our results on student achievement for the CogSci intervention are impressive. Now you say, well, you didn't get effects everywhere, but on the other hand, we got effects. And most people who do these large-scale randomized field trials, if they get effects on interventions like ours, get them on teacher behaviors in the classroom, but not on student achievement. So the numbers where it goes all the way to student achievement are relatively rare. And so we think that maybe one reason why we got these effects. So look at bullet 2. There are at least 5 characteristics of, quote, effective professional development that have emerged out of the literature, and a lot of people hold them in mind, and that's what Laura Desimone was talking about yesterday, and I list them there as a content focus, not only a content focus, a focus on the content to be taught, but also a content focus on how students learn that content, what we know about student learning as well. Duration, it's just sufficient number of hours, but also the idea that it's distributed over time, not just massed hours. Coherent, and there's 2 ways that people think about coherent. One is it's coherent with the system in which the teachers are teaching, including the curriculum that they're to be teaching. And the other one is that it meets the teachers where they are. You know, so if the teachers are at one place and your professional development misses them, that's probably not going to be very effective, and that's commonsensical. But when we say coherent, we're thinking both sides of that. Active learning, so hopefully that's what this session is going to be. We're going to be interactive here as soon as I get my mouth shut. And then collective participation. And we may not have gotten an A+ on our interventions, but the idea is that if you bring teachers together in teams to learn what it is to be learned in the professional development. Then when they go away from it, they can interact among themselves because they've come as a team. So you could think about all the fourth grade teachers in a district or all of the science teachers in a school, that kind of thing. That's collective participation. So we grade ourselves out as pretty good on these 5. Now what we're suggesting is that maybe to the 5 we should add bullet 1. The intervention is a mixture of modified curriculum materials and accompanying professional development. The idea that you integrate, that it could be close to that coherence thing, but the more tightly integrated your professional development is to the actual curriculum and curriculum materials that teachers are using, might be a 6th characteristic of professional development to think about. I guess what I called it was clarity on when, where, and how to integrate pedagogical strategies with the content to be learned by students. By the way, there was one slide in my presentation yesterday that I clicked on and for somehow got distracted and didn't talk about. And I just want to point out that that is related to this enthusiasm we have for cognitive science. Recall I was saying that it looked like, especially for Cell's unit in Holt, that we got bigger effects from teachers who were teaching it for the second time versus for the first time. And that was consistent with, as Joe said, our cohort 2 is our money cohort. We thought most everybody would be teaching it for the second time, and it was less than that. That's another implication to think about. But what I did stress yesterday was, okay, we got bigger effects for those teachers than we did for the others, but I didn't show you the direct test of significance. And there was a slide on that. So if you say, is the difference between cognitive science and control for teachers teaching it the second time bigger than the difference between cognitive science and control for teachers teaching it the first time, and this would be in cohort 2, is that statistically significant? Difference of differences. We did a test on that, and it was significant at the 0.05 level. And by the way, it wasn't just cog sci versus content, which was one of those contrasts we got, which wasn't quite as appealing as we wanted. It was cog sci versus control. So that is very convincing to us. And I'm just stressing this because just noticing that something is significant here and not there doesn't mean that the two are significantly different one from another. We did that direct test and we got the results. So the second implication is just kind of the opposite. So, as I said yesterday, we thought we gave it a pretty good shot on trying to improve teacher content knowledge. And we didn't really have any evidence of an effect. And we had a test. Remember, the content knowledge that we were trying to improve them on was very similar to the content knowledge that they were supposedly teaching their students to know. So it wasn't esoteric or far distant, removed content. It was content really embedded in the curriculum. And on our teacher content knowledge test, their performance was about 50%. So there was plenty of room. And we did have some teachers that got a perfect score on that test. So it wasn't the test was all that weird. Now, the reason why, so the question here is, so at least Joe and I, and I'll bet you others of you think, it's better to have teachers who know the content that they're teaching than teachers who don't. And that they probably, because of that, would be more effective in some ways. We don't have the mechanism for how their teaching would look different, although we would think one mechanism would be, it would just be more accurate content. So probably if you take an undergraduate degree in science, you're going to know, that would move the needle. You'd know more. So that's an intervention that probably works. But what about in professional development? Because we've got lots of teachers, as Joe and others were saying, that really don't have an undergraduate major in science that are teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science. So, and we look at what they know, and it is somewhat, there's room for more. What kind of professional development could have an impact on teacher content knowledge? Now, I'm just going to put out, I don't think anything that any of us have been, we gave it a good shot. I don't think anything that any of us have been doing is probably going to work. It is probably working. So I think it either requires, I think in implications requires a whole new way of thinking about how do you improve teacher content knowledge in the context of ongoing professional development. So those are just two implications I toss out for your consideration and add to.